Hi, real estate enthusiasts. So I'm going to talk about JV agreements. I love JV partnerships. So JV is joint ventures. So I love joint venture partnerships. Why do I love them? Because you can do whatever you want. They're incredibly flexible, and it's a way for you to align yourself with other like-minded investors who are coming together per a specific deal. And there are a group of people who are basically filling in the areas that you need help with. So it could be someone who is more ideal for operations. It could be someone who's actually bringing the deal. It could be someone who's the financial person. Like whatever it may be, that person is specifically coming in. They're joining the venture. They're joining the deal with whatever they're bringing to the table, okay? So that's kind of why, I guess, why you'd align yourself with one in the first place. But I'm gonna tell you about 5 things that I make sure that I talk about up front, that I figure out either prior to connecting to investors. So a lot of times I have the deal and I'm reaching out and I'm looking for investors to come and work for me. So when that happens, when I'm the one with the deal, then I get to look at the deal and decide what I'm missing, who I need to connect with, and how it best fits the deal of what I'm looking for. Like, so I say, if someone's gonna come in and they're gonna actually help, like maybe it's a massive like rehab takeover. Okay, now I'm looking for someone who has experience in fully renovating a commercial property and what the deal can actually handle per time frame, vacancy, or paying that joint venture. Are they getting an interest monthly? So are they going to be kind of getting distributions for their time? Are they creating like a larger equity percentage for it? You know, because sometimes that might take 6 months of work for them. And so maybe they are getting monthly distributions. So what can the deal handle? What is it really needing for that? So that was just kind of one example. There's lots of different things, but right now I'm just going to kind of talk about the 5 things that I look at when I first am looking at a deal of if I'm going to make a joint venture, and if I am, why? Like, what am I needing? So one of the things I look at is lending, and this comes from both sides. So this can be lending terms from a third-party lender or from the joint venture themselves, my joint venture partner. Am I looking for a joint venture lender? Say that 3 times fast. Am I looking for someone who's going to be my JV partner because they're going to be the lender? Am I looking for a JV partner because I want them to come in and be the funding equity partner? So they're kind of funding the deal or funding the down payment or funding the rehab, and they get equity of the deal. Or they're funding it, and so I'm then going to pay them interest and monthly installments. Whatever it may be, the financial lending side is kind of the first piece that I look at, because without money, you can't really do a deal. So what can the deal handle? So how am I going to set this up in the first place? What am I missing? So if it's a third-party lender, I could be getting a JV because I need them to be kind of a key principal, like a guarantor on the loan. So if I'm bringing someone in because I have a third-party lender who's going to give me awesome rates, but they want to see maybe more net worth. They want to see more experience. They want to see more liquidity. Like whatever it may be, that could be why I'm aligning myself with a JV partner. So my JV partner can be the lender, or they can be the person that helps me lock in a more competitive rate with a third-party lender. All right, so that's number 1. Look at the lending financial aspect of your JV, why you're wanting to make it joint venture, okay? So I keep saying that because just because you have a deal doesn't mean it has to be a joint venture. Okay, you can set it up in lots of different ways, or you could literally just have someone as a second lien holder, you know? So look at the deal and see if it's something that you want to have as a joint venture, or as you look at the deal more closely, you could say, you know what, I actually don't have to do a JV. I found someone who's okay to be a second lien, so actually this deal just has 2 lien holders on it, and I don't even need to do the JV agreement. A lot of times I like the JV agreement when it comes to the lending aspect because I have more flexibility on the JV piece of it, because usually they're kind of taking some type of ownership in the deal. Maybe they're looking more at, less cash flow initially, and then they get a larger percentage as the property gets stabilized. Or they have equity stake in the property, and so then when the property, during stabilization, if the cash flow dips, or if like COVID happens or wintertime happens and some leases drop out or people get late on their rent or whatever it may be, I have flexibility with my JV. I don't have as much flexibility with a second lien because they're just a lender. They're a private lender and they just want their money. They don't really care about the deal. They care about their principal and interest. So for the lending piece, that's usually why you'd set it up as a JV, but you want to look at the deal and see what the deal can handle. Okay. So number 2, I look at how you're going to set up title, the legalities of it. Okay. So a JV, you could literally just write up a JV contract, and at closing, you can get it notarized. You don't even have to. Well, look at your state. So in the state of Texas, anything that is written down and signed, you can even have it verbal, which don't do verbal. Even though that is a legal thing in Texas, it's really hard to go to court and say, hey, he said this. Like, don't do that, okay? And so it is nice to get something notarized. So we usually have our JV agreement, and we just have it at title. We usually get it notarized, and it's just filed with all the other paperwork. Title company doesn't do anything with it. It isn't their document. Some title companies do have an attorney who will write up your joint venture agreement, but you definitely have to ask and shop around and look around, okay? But you can write up your own. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to your partner. So, I mean, that's something to discuss. But title, are they going to be on the property title? Okay, so, and this is something you need to ask because some investors, they only do joint ventures one way. And you would think all investors understand what a joint venture is, but they only understand what they know. And joint venture, you can do anything you want with it. It can be as creative as you want it to be. So some investors have only ever done joint ventures where they're also listed on title, or they're the second lien and they're listed on title. Or they are an operations manager and they are listed on title, or they're listed on the LLC, like you form an LLC and they're actually managers of that LLC. So then they are on title because that LLC buys it. So I point this out because you want to know how they're going to be on title, if they're going to be on title, if they're going to be a part of the LLC, and how comfortable they are. Like, how does the joint venture agreement need to be written up by an attorney? Where do they want it filed? Do they want it notarized? All of that stuff needs to be discussed, and be flexible with it. If, this part of it doesn't completely break, it shouldn't completely break a deal, okay? So you want to make sure everyone feels protected. Everyone's going into it together, and you're creating a contracted relationship with this person. So you want to both feel secure and feel like if anything bad did happen, or if anyone does screw you over, like, you are protected, okay? So, but as the original owner, I guess you can say, if I have the deal and my plan is in 3 years to refinance the deal and pay out my JV partners, and then I'm going to keep the property and I'm going to pay them out because they're getting equity and they're getting a certain return on their money or their time. I don't want them on my LLC. I don't want to create an LLC with their name on it because that's my company. And in 3 years, I'm going to refinance them out. And then I would have to then actually get them taken off of the LLC. That's just a lot more paperwork, a lot more headache, a lot more disconnect. I mean, they're very involved at that point if you form them on the LLC. So again, you want to make sure you have that conversation because some investors don't know the complexity of actually detaching, unforming, or whatever a company. So like if you have a storage facility and it's called Hubbard Self Storage, and Hubbard Self Storage is owned by 4 people, but 3 of those people are only connected to the property as passive investors, and you are going to refi them out in 3 years, you don't want them on that LLC. So have that conversation with them. Always have like an attorney involved, someone who can then make sure that they're feeling comfortable with however it is set up, because there's lots of ways to be protected without actually being on title or being on the LLC. So that's the point of the JV agreement. So contract, the JV agreement, okay? This should be sufficient for all or most investors. So depending on how it's set up and their involvement and their risk that they're putting into it, they shouldn't need or want or care to be on title or be formed in the LLC because you have a contract, okay? So I say this because you want to make sure you read that contract, okay? I have had bad situations where we've had a contract. We've read the whole contract, but sometimes there's ways that you can misconstrue it or whatever. And when you have a partner that kicks and screams and is just difficult to work with, sometimes you can even read out parts of the contract and they will still try to contradict it. So that's why I say sometimes it is nice to have an attorney so then they can explain it, they can walk everyone through it, and you're not just like, oh, did you read it? Yeah, I did. Because the attorney is actually walking you through and reading everything to you, okay? So it is good to get a third-party attorney involved, make sure that everyone has read and agreed to it, and that you have aligned everything with what you've talked about, the lending, with the legality purposes of it, and then the person. Okay, so don't do a joint venture with anybody, okay? You, just like getting married, you go to the courthouse, you get a contract, and you are legally and financially connected to your partner. The government views you as dual. You know, you get taxed together. You get insurance quotes together. You can buy houses and loans together. Well, guess what? When you have a joint venture with somebody, you can do very similar things, especially if they're on title or in the LLC. You are for sure, you guys can get credit cards together. You can buy properties together. You have formed just like a marriage. That's why people say, you are married together for the length of that property. So a joint venture can get dissolved a little bit easier than title and an LLC, but don't think of it that way because then that might deter you to align yourself with the wrong person, okay? So it is the same. It is a legal contract binding you dependent on the terms of that contract with that person. So you want to make sure that it's someone you know, someone that has experience in what you're doing, someone who actually has the strength, like if they're coming in as a financial partner, that they don't have just enough money to do that deal. They're the financial partner. And so depending on how the contract is, if more money is needed for the deal, that person can actually do it because they are the lenders to that deal. So make sure that if they are the lender, they have more than enough cash to do this deal and many others, okay? You don't want to limit yourself. If they're the contract person or the operations person, make sure they have experience. Make sure they know what they're doing. Make sure they haven't just done one or said, oh, well, I ran a daycare, I operated that, so I'm pretty sure I can just operate, a retail department or whatever. Don't do that. They need to be bringing that strength to the table. That is why they're getting a piece of the deal. That's why you're legally connecting yourself to that person, because they're that missing link of what you need for that property to create success. Okay? So that person needs to have those strengths, but they also need to have your same vision. Do they need the money now? Are they focused more on cash flow? Are they focused more on appreciation? Are they focused more on tax benefits? What is their purpose of getting into deals? Even if they're operations, even if they're the contractor, you're like, oh, well, they're the contractor person, so they obviously want the cash flow or they want the distributions. That's not true. They could have enough cash flow and distributions from other businesses, and this one they're buying because they liked the numbers and it made sense for appreciation. You know what I mean? So don't assume anything. Talk to them about what their goals are, what they're hoping for their portfolio, what their future plans are. Is this a person you could actually grow into and actually buy more deals with? It's so amazing to actually get a joint venture partner that you can keep doing deals with over and over and over again. That is incredibly powerful because I already talked about compounding time. So if you have people that you can share the load with, it's the same thing. Those people are your other sources. So you're being able to leverage other people's time and create more sources of assets, of income sources, of whatever it may be, because of these people that you've connected yourself with. Okay. So, and again, obviously, just like ethics and morals, do they align with yours? Are they so focused? Are they like pinching every single penny and they're like, oh, that contractor nicked the wall, so we're going to dock them $100. Like, I'm just bringing that up because I don't like working with those people. If I find a hardworking person, man, I am going to pay you more. I am going to bring you lunch. I'm going to do something because it's so hard finding good working people. But the same with investors. If I find someone who is going above and beyond of like, oh, I went ahead and did this report, or I did this market research, and they're showing like leadership and passion in something that we're working on. I'm going to encourage that and I'm going to applaud it. I'm not going to say, oh, are they wanting more money from the deal? Or, oh, they're going to take this from me, or, oh, they're my competition. Don't do that. Don't. And some people do. So I try to steer very clear away from people like that, who they're like, oh, well, this property doesn't work, but we can wholesale it. So let's sell it at market value so we can wholesale. I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. I'm like, I am an investor. And when I'm buying a property from a wholesaler, I'm hoping that wholesaler is going to like allow me a lot of profit for buying like off market and for like buying this property from them, not like through a broker, like I'm hoping I'm getting a deal. And so as a wholesaler, I don't like taking all of the money. So the investor, yeah, they're going to be able to make money, but it's going to take them a couple of years and a lot of hard work and a lot of risk. Like, I just don't think that's fair because I'm on both sides. So, and I do know investors who are like that. They're like, oh, well, we could probably sell it for this. I'm like, you probably could, but why? Okay, don't try to get rich from the one thing. And investors out there, they try to get rich from the one thing, or they try to nickel and dime everything, and you just don't want to be with that person. Okay. Number 5, exit strategy. I say this especially when multiple people are involved. So many people are like, exit strategy, duh. We're gonna buy the property, we're gonna stabilize it, and we're gonna develop 30 more units, or we're going to rent out the parking lot to taco trucks or whatever it may be. Like, obviously this is the exit strategy, and then we're gonna sell it for a ton of money. We're gonna create awesome like pro forma income, leases, rents, whatever it may be, and we're gonna sell it for a ton more money because it's producing so much more money. And when we sell it, the cap rates are going to be so low that it's going to be like worth 10 times more. You know what I mean? Okay, that's great. That's great. Have multiple exit strategies and talk about worst case scenarios. What if your partner dies? What happens? So many people will be like, oh my gosh, well, I'm in my 20s or my 30s. My partner's never going to die. You know how many times I've been mid-deal and all of a sudden I don't hear from my partner for like a week? I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Oh shoot. And they were sick or something happened or whatever it may be. But that it does happen. It does happen. Your partner can die. What happens? Like, don't delve crazy deep into it because the likelihood is slim, but you can't sit there laying at night going, oh shoot. Like, what if that happens? What if 2020 happens and you have a retail center and the whole thing shuts down for 6 months and your leases start dropping like flies? It's hard to predict that, but what happens if your commercial property dips below 60% occupancy or 30% occupancy? What happens if you can't evict them? Like, talk about these things. A deal doesn't have to work at empty, if you don't have anyone renting the property. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to say don't buy a deal because at 30% occupancy, it's losing money. Of course it's losing money. But create different strategies. Could you then sell each little individual building like a condo? I don't know if they do that for a retail center, where instead of selling the whole shop, try to owner finance one little unit, see if you can subdivide them. That way you're not losing a ton of money, and maybe someone has ownership and you're getting financing money in. like I said, maybe start renting out the parking lot to events to help fill in because the storefronts are closed, but maybe you have a parking lot that you could do circuses or taco trucks or whatever. So create different opportunities where if something happens, you have a backup plan, but most of all, have a reserve. So your highest cash flowing months, you should be putting money aside so you don't have to exit during 2020. You can sit and live off your reserve until things start happening again. But talk about it. You need that strategy. It's not, your exit strategy is not always going to be your first option, your first purpose of going in. Okay, so joint venture. I probably should have broken this up into a couple of videos. So my 5 tips, you guys, my 5 tips is lending. Does it align with your deal itself? And how is the lending and why do you need the joint venture? Are they going to be your partner? Are they going to be a guarantor, your key principal? Are they going to be both? Like, how is that going to work? Why do you need someone in on your deal for lending? Title, how are you going to set up? What's the legalities? Like, how does everyone get connected? And what is the way that everyone feels the most secured? Contract, everyone needs to read it. Everyone needs to be in agreement in it. And it needs to cover different exit strategies or worst case scenarios. Okay, your contract needs to cover those. And so no one is left guessing. Person, just because someone says that they're amazing and awesome, don't believe that. Look at their track record, talk to other people or know them, have a relationship with them previously, and have a working relationship with them. Friends and family have complications for a reason, because once the stress of stuff involved and money becomes involved, people change. Okay, so know them on a business and professional level. Exit strategy, we just went over it. Make sure you have multiple exit strategies and a reserve so you can float through the hard times. All right, you guys, stay tuned for my next video. And if you liked, comment below and let me know. Let me know what you guys are working on and what you're struggling with and your wins. I love to hear about them and talk about them and help you in any way I can. Thanks.